Good morning, YouTubers, and welcome once again to the eastern wing of the Stink Bug Works. Today I'm going to talk about a bunch of things. First of all, let's talk about what's under the hood of the JetStepper IV. Why, Shazam! It's that little Cermark brushless motor. I think this is a 10 or 18 amp ESC, I don't recall. A 450 milliamp 2-cell. And this thing up here, that's the last of its kind. It's a device called a Pistix, Pistix, by Montana Designs. Now get a load of this. You're going to love this. Right here, the Pistix. Montana Designs was a company made by Andy Kuntz. Andy Kuntz was an electronic engineer, and so he designed this, and he also designed brushed speed controls back in the day. And if you had one of Andy's speed control and a Speed 700 motor, you were in there for limited specs. So Andy now works for Horizon Hobbies, who, owns or is Proboat. So anyway, Andy and I used to fly the same kind of glider, the Glassflugel 301 Labelle. I think his was number 14. I had number 34. Anyway, but that was a long time ago. So I sent Andy a note saying, you got any more of these lying around? So we'll see what he has to say. But he is connected with Proboat. That's interesting. I wonder if he and Big B have crossed paths. That would be an interesting question. Anyway, this thing, check it out, check it out. Let's see, we plug the red into the red, yeah, and the black into the black, and look, it's beeping, and it's doing all kinds of things, and it's running. And look, it has that silicon coupler. And let's disconnect this, and I'll talk about that silicon coupler and what I'm going to hook you guys up with. The old prop shaft, the old prop shaft had a flat on it here and just barely protruded from this step. And so I made another drive shaft because I have a bunch of these. They weren't cheap, but it was cheaper to buy a bunch because shipping for a whole bunch was the same as shipping for one. And I'm going to give you guys links on this, and we'll talk about this in a second. So anyway, I made a longer one so I could have more grip, and then using the length of a particular piece of tubing, I hooked the motor up and then just put everything together with hot glue. Hello. With these things, hot glue is your friend, especially if you're doing prototyping and stuff. You see, I just glued this in with blobs of hot glue, and for like right here, I want this wire to hold down, and so I'll just take a little wad of hot glue and stick it right there, and bingo, that wire will be there. But if I ever need to get it off, that hot glue will just peel off. So that's a real good way to do this. You see, I put a couple of blobs here to hold the receiver in place. Again, if I ever got to get this out, it'll pop right out. So hot glue is your friend. So this guy's ready to go. I'm going to try the smallest 1/8-inch prop I have. Now, let's talk about the 1/8-inch prop shaft. This is not an 1/8 of an inch. The bore inside of everything you'll use, from your drive dogs to your brass tubings to your ball bearings to whatever, the inside bore of those items is going to be an 1/8 of an inch. 0.1250. But if the shaft is 0.1250, you're going to have an interference fit, and it'll be a press fit. You know, not a real tight press fit, but it'll be a press fit that you don't want. This shaft is actually 0.1247. It's 3/10,000ths of an inch light of 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to give you guys links to this in the description. These are available from SDV, Small Drive Products, Inc., and I think you can get them at McMaster Car. I'll double check, but these are precision ground shafts. They're accurate. You can get them in different grades. I think these are accurate to 2/1000ths of an inch over a foot. So a 12-inch piece will be accurate to 2/1000ths of an inch. So these are nice pieces, and they make great direct drives inside of a shaft like this, or you can run them on ball bearings. So there you go with that. Now, another thing I want to share with you is, remember I talked about getting in here and shaping this? Well, I don't know how many of you know that such a creature exists, but these are riffler files. They're files that are bent and contoured in all shapes and sizes. If you want to play around with, shaping things like this, look into a set of riffler files. Riffler file set. You can find these on eBay. They're not very expensive, they're Chinese. And if you're just cutting plastic and aluminum with this, they're fine. If you're cutting aluminum, you get a lot of bugs in them. Just brush them off. So there's that. So we talk. Oh, yes. If you'll notice, my motor mount is 3 thicknesses of plywood. And what I did was I drilled a 1/2-inch hole in a piece of 16th plywood, and then using this super nice tapered reamer that I got from Stu Mac. Now, Stu Mac is for luthiers, and Stu Mac really values their product. This is not cheap, but if you have anything similar to this. Anyway, I then reamed this hole to fit the boss on that motor, and I did it twice. Then I slipped these together, tack glued them with CA, pulled the motor out, CA'd them all together, cleaned up the bore. And then what I did was, on the 3rd piece of plywood, I drilled the motor mount screws and the shaft hole. And then after that was done, I hardened everything with CA, and I started enlarging the shaft hole. I have a smaller version of this. I started enlarging the shaft hole to where it was large enough for this silicone tube to slide all the way up and in it, and almost, but not quite, touch the motor boss. So I want as much physical contact area on this shaft and on this shaft, and as little space in between them as possible. So that's the way I have it set up. And it runs super smooth. And with as little power as this thing has, I'm thinking this should be more than enough. So this may have solved the rather difficult coupler issue easily. Now, this motor has a 3mm shaft, and the drive shaft is 1/8 or 3.175, or whatever 1/8 is in millimeters. So they're real close, 3 and 3.18. So we'll see how that coupler works. Like I said, I'm going to use the smallest prop I can at first, and we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. So sorry this has been so long. Dr. Jet has been jacking his jaw. So until next time, Jet out.